In the 2016 election, lefties, at the very least Sanders supporters, have still bitter feelings about that particular election cut deep. The DNC, who was not an impartial actor, despite their protestations otherwise, they have been looking people in the face saying we were impartial actors, and that could not be further from the truth. Even Donna Brazile, someone who was head of the DNC at the time, said as much. Yes, she was hawking a book, but that was the most honest thing, at the very least written in that particular point, that they were not impartial actors. They had a very specific, let's call it, arrangement with the Hillary Clinton campaign, who they were depending on just to breathe, just to get gasps of air and being put on an allowance. One of the things that the DNC was spending its money on were consultants. These consultants, flush with the DNC cash, found it appropriate to go out and attack Sanders. Meaning the DNC, who claimed to be impartial, who was not being impartial, also found the time and the money, despite being dead broke, to give to consultants who, again, claim to be impartial, goes out and attacks and bashes Sanders. Doing it online in print media, also writing op-eds. And some of these people even were associated with setting a debate schedule that, again, was slanted against Sanders. Now, you can see the problem with this, right? Ultimately, we're told we are being impartial, and any saying otherwise is sour grapes. This organization that is supposed to be impartial, with multiple candidates running in a race, takes its money to give to consultants. Those consultants go about setting the messaging, and just so happen that messaging falls in alignment with the Hillary Clinton campaign against the Bernie Sanders campaign, despite them supposed to be in a process that is supposed to be impartial. Yes, I'm beating a dead horse with the impartial thing because I want to get across why it burns. Whether or not Clinton was going to win that race, she had every advantage in the world. And they went even on top of that in order to rig that particular race. It is absolutely honest that the DNC is paying people, and those people go about setting a certain political disposition. And I'm sorry, you can dance between the raindrops all you want, in the sense that, well, we were paying them for one thing. They're going out and talking to the media and writing op-eds online and in print media attacking one of the candidates is what they're doing on their personal time. As if what they're doing politically for the DNC is somehow fundamentally different than what they're doing when they're attacking him in their quote-unquote own personal time. Certainly the DNC learned their lesson, right? Certainly they've learned their lesson on this. Certainly, they wouldn't put money in someone's pocket as a consultant or operative, whatever those people are, and then have those people go out and those people bash and attack one of the other candidates in the race. Certainly, they would never do that again. Yes, they would do that again. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon. This content is brought to you by you because they demonetize these videos, so even $1 helps. I have indelible scars in me. They may be invisible, but they are there nonetheless. Going back to 2016, and you can make an argument that 2016 hasn't ended, or at the very least hasn't come to its triumphant conclusion. Perhaps this is one of those Spartan things where the guy goes out, gets sacrificed, and then a larger group comes back afterwards in the argument and anger from the sacrifice. However it's categorized, however it's explained, there are a lot of us that look at what took place in 2016 as an outright travesty and an undermining and subversion of democracy itself. Meaning, if any notion of democracy exists, and the definitions that we as human beings ascribe to this, meaning public coming together, making a choice in regards to a representative, representative democracy, but you know what I mean, then that is undermined when one of the parties make a choice on who they want over another person in the contest that is supposed to be used to determine who gets elected. It is onerous for a Democratic Party to say that they are impartial and then pay operatives that just so happen to go out and set a message and a tone that is in alignment with what the prevailing party wants. That's onerous. And the fact that that is happening again in this election, happening again. DNC put money in a person's pocket. That person goes on and does media engagements attacking my guy. Now, why on earth? How on earth is this fair? And how on earth can I, who don't trust the DNC one iota, how can I not look at this and to some degree think that the DNC approves of this person's messaging against my person? Despite the fact that the DNC is supposed to be cleaning up its act from what took place in 2016 and this appearance of impropriety that Tom Perez keeps screaming about. What about this as an appearance of impropriety? MSNBC, who has made no secret of their seething resentment against my guy, meaning Sanders, they attack him remorselessly. One woman going so far as to say, make my skin crawl. Another going so far as to say that if you are supporting Warren, who at this point is in third and may potentially get gobbled up by Buttigieg, if you're supporting Sanders at this point, you're just sexist. She has better plans. She's ahead. You're just sexist. All of that stuff is nonsense. And yet, that is what they put on their airwaves constantly, over and over and over and over again. There was a study on this, and it found that for the most part, when they talked about Sanders, it was a majority negative. Loved Biden. Warren didn't like as much, but at the very least gave her positive coverage. But Sanders, they hated. And this is the lean left network. This goes into my argument that this is one party. It represents one class. The fact that they look at Sanders, just him being there, and they recoil and hiss, gets across that this is something fundamentally different than what they are. And if MSNBC does indeed represent the Democratic Party, then how can you tell me that these factors, what he represents and looks at from the standpoint of the world, and what they represent, are in any way akin to one another? The Democratic Party is closer to the Republican Party than the Democratic Party is to Sanders. And this goes to my point of the one-party system. The fact that that party is controlled, meaning both by capital, finance, military, these very specific things that these parties entirely agree upon almost across the board, with small gradations, small differences. But the small differences are so minor as if to not be there at all, despite the fact that the public has just gotten attuned to the fact that these parties kind of wrestle in this theatrical way every 4 years. He's different. This party is captured by the wealth, just like the Republican Party is. The Republican Party is just more honest about it. And fact of the matter is, their reaction to him gets across his difference. You don't have to take his word for it. You can see it in the way they react. Especially MSNBC. When they did a poll, they found that people for Fox News had a better impression of Sanders than people who were watchers of MSNBC. It has to do with the way and the tone that they use when they talk about him. Now, MSNBC may do that. Fair enough. But look at what's taking place here. MSNBC brings on two Hillary people to just slander and attack Sanders. One of these Hillary people is on the dole of the DNC. Let's hear it out.
Adrian, you first.
Yeah, look, Alex, I'm really glad that she made this.
Adrian, you first. Yeah, look, Alex, I'm really glad that she made this point because it did take Bernie Sanders a long time to endorse Hillary Clinton. It took him a long time to get out of the race, and it also took him a long time to actually go out and campaign for us. And I think the point that she's making is, you know, no matter what happens in 2020, I do hope that Bernie Sanders, if he's not the nominee, will endorse whomever the nominee is. I'm glad.
This is why my mom never wanted me in politics. This is absolutely why. It's aggravating. It's aggravating. People say things that are so untethered to honesty. Like why is honesty so hard? Like, listen to what she's saying. Sanders didn't get out the race fast enough for Hillary Clinton. Okay, well, subjectively, I suppose you could say there's a such thing that Hillary Clinton wanted him to just not get in the race at all. But is that really the standard? Especially since Hillary Clinton postulated that Obama might get whacked and that she need to be in the race just in case that eventuality happens. But she would say this. She goes on television and says this nonsense. Sanders campaigned in places that Clinton didn't even go. Clinton didn't even go to Wisconsin. She took it as she's saving the public from Donald Trump, the person who she and her acolytes in 2016 that were again being paid by the Democratic Party followed suit in playing up. Meaning playing up Trump. This is flagrantly dishonest. And MSNBC would give her airtime to say it. And the Democratic Party would pay her. Pay her. Whatever her services that she's being paid for, those services are in a political capacity. And being paid by the DNC, whether it's for this explicit thing or not, is almost irrelevant. She's coming out here with a political discourse and a political disposition. And a party that is supposed to be impartial is giving her money. You can dance between the raindrops and say that the money is not for her to give this political disposition, but the fact that she's a political creature, it is her job, and now, in pursuit of that job that's allowed her to even be on this television show in the first place, she's slandering my guy, one of the other people in the race. This is exactly what they did in 2016. They're doing it again. They're doing it again. Let's hear her out.
Glad she made that point.
Philippe?
Well, don't forget that she's been on both sides of this. Hillary was the nominee in 2016, and the only people in hindsight who think that Bernie did a lot for her or enough for her is Bernie and his supporters.
That's amazing. Because I can show you a video where Rachel Maddow says that Sanders worked tirelessly, almost like a machine, to get Hillary Clinton elected. I can show you the videos where Clinton herself said Sanders did great getting her elected. Right here. Here's one.
You know, I really want to thank my friend Bernie Sanders for everything that he has done. I got to serve with Bernie. We were colleagues in the Senate. I saw firsthand his commitment to the people of Vermont and to the values that have guided his life. And when we faced each other in the primary, here's what I was so proud about. We ran a campaign on the issues that matter to the American people. And I think because of that campaign, we were able to raise a lot of the issues that you heard Bernie talking about to the level that they are part of this presidential campaign. And they will be part of our agenda after January 20th, Bernie. And I've got to say, too, this election's been a lot more fun now that we're on the same side. And I want to thank Bernie for everything he's done. He's crisscrossing our country, energizing people, getting folks off the sidelines and engaged in politics. And there's no question that his efforts are paying off. And what he said...
Is she lying? Is she lying? I mean, both things can't be true. Both things can't be true. You can't have a situation where these people, like MSNBC, say these things. They just say it, flagrantly say it. And not once are they ever challenged. Not once do people ever bring up the contrary point of view. They are unanimous in their hatred for him. And this is supposed to be the left-leaning network. This is the mouthpiece of the Democratic Party. If you want to know what they think, turn on MSNBC. They hate his guts. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party are fundamentally the same party. They're two wings of the same bird. They look at the world in the exact same point of view with small variances between them two. Right now, what you're seeing is an operative, a person who's paid by the DNC. Again, whether or not she's paid specifically to do this is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. What's true is just like in 2016, you had people who they were paying as operatives, and those people just so happen to continuously show up and parrot the line of Clinton. And in this case, you have somebody who's once again doing the exact same thing to attack Sanders on the DNC payroll. A payroll, an organization that is supposedly impartial. This doesn't look impartial to me at all. On a secondary point, MSNBC doesn't bring up who this person is. Right here. Adrienne K. Elrod. $5,000 disbursement, the DNC. The DNC is paying for her services. What those services are, who knows? I would imagine some level of consulting. In the last election, it had to do with messaging. And again, just so happened, those people who were paid by the DNC for messaging set the message of Sanders sucks, Clinton is awesome, Trump will be the nominee, in which case the Pied Piper strategy. And right here, Elrod Strategies. Elrod Strategies. MSNBC doesn't disclose that. Meaning, it doesn't disclose that this woman is being paid by the DNC in order to offer this opinion. And maybe that doesn't matter because it's MSNBC after all. But my bigger issue with this is that she's paid by the DNC and is going out and attacking one of the candidates. And this, again, is exactly what they did in 2016. If Tom Perez is trying to clean up the perspective of things, you better start here. Darren Levy, hi Jamal, could you do a live stream of Gordon DeMack tomorrow covering the UK election results? Maybe. I'm not against it. It depends on the time frame. I have something that needs to take place tomorrow, and even though I want to cover the election results, I may not be able to do it just from the time frame. All right. I'm going to end this, and I need to hit Gordon up on this. Like, share, subscribe. I'm sorry, MSNBC is trash. And the way they go about attacking and slandering the guy is obscene, especially since they're supposed to be the lean left. I make the point again that it's lean left, but the perspective is a corporate perspective because, again, it's the oligarchs in this country that own both the media and the political space and set the agenda and the narrative for those things. If my kids are going to be able to go to school and it doesn't burn me, if I'm not going to have to worry about Social Security because I'm already quite well off, if I can get medical attention without it breaking the bank, and even if it was something bad, I know I'd be okay just based on the current model of things. If the world around me has allowed me to get to the disposition where I can put my hands on and use and utilize all of the things that are around me that I need to exist as a person, and not just barely getting by, but getting by in a certain well-off way, then why on earth would I change that system? I understand what I mean by that. Whether you're talking about a Democratic establishment or Republican establishment, the people who we're talking about that is of this particular 1%, their needs are different than ours. Every incentive in the world is for them to keep the system the way the system is. Maybe given a modest gains in order to kind of shut people up. This kind of yang thing of, I'm getting $1,000 now, leave me the fuck alone. But ultimately, when they're looking out at the world and they're making a perspective of the world, there's small variances between the parties. The biggest fight is on identity because, again, all of these other economic issues and these things that plague you and dig into you are just off the table. They don't matter. That's corporate capture. And that is a perspective of the world. That perspective of the world is not an absolute. It's only a perspective. And I would make the point that you require, just from the standpoint of workers and people who are not of that ilk. I mean, for fuck's sake, 95% of the income gains went to the top 1% under Obama. If you had a class that was actually representing workers, does that happen? Does it happen? Think of all the labor that takes place in the context of this country. Think of everything that needs to keep the lights on, keeps the waters running, to keep the airplanes flying, to keep the burglars at bay, to keep the fires in case something goes wrong on that front. Even from the standpoint of your military, in order to keep the wolves at bay. At this point, it has been keeping the wolves at bay. We've been wolves ourselves. But I hope you get my point. The person that pours your coffee, the person that fixes your shoes, the haberdashers, all of the productive capacity that is necessary in order to keep this country moving and ticking along. And all of that labor, 95% of the income gains of that labor gets ferreted to the top 1%. That's obscene. I'm sorry, that's obscene. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, as a person, that should be obscene. I don't know why on earth any sane, rational human being will step outside of the context and look at the planet and say, yes, it makes all the sense in the world that 1% expropriate 95% of the gains. Missing the point that it requires people to buy those products or people to make those products for that wealth to ever even be created. And yet you have two political parties that takes the disposition that it is perfectly okay for a person, A, to get $100 billion, B, for billionaires to even exist, and C, even if the other 2 points are too far, to believe that workers should be so dispossessed that they miss out on the point, that they are instrumental in making the society run. And of all of the quantities of this, they are the only quantity that is necessary. This is the kings and queens argument. And yet, this is where we are. And you've had Democrats beaten into the heads of the population to deaden their expectations because they are the party that supposedly is on the left. And of anybody that is going to do anything that is productive for the population itself, it will be that party. And it is just that party that has taken the tact of incrementalism as their tried and true, fortunately, losing faith. It's just aggravating. I'll leave it here. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.